Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today, we're diving into one of the most intense and secretive joint operations in recent U.S. history, an extraordinary mission that saw the United States Navy and the FBI team up to strike a hidden $30 billion cartel fleet operating in the Caribbean Sea. This operation, shrouded in secrecy until recently, sent shockwaves across the region and dealt a devastating blow to one of the most powerful criminal networks on the planet. It wasn't just another drug bust, it was a coordinated strike involving naval warships, intelligence assets, and federal agents working side by side in a high-stakes battle against organized crime that had quietly turned the Caribbean into a floating empire of illicit trade. The story begins far from the battle zone, deep inside intelligence centers in Quantico and the Pentagon. For months, U.S. surveillance aircraft and naval satellites had been tracking suspicious maritime traffic moving between South America, the Caribbean, and West Africa. The pattern was unusual: fleets of ghost ships that turned off their tracking systems for days at a time before reappearing near remote island chains or deserted coastal zones. Inside these unregistered vessels, analysts suspected massive quantities of narcotics, weapons, and even human cargo were being smuggled under the radar. But this wasn't a typical drug operation. This network had military-grade organization, encrypted communications, radar jammers, and even former Navy engineers working for the cartel. What they uncovered was staggering: a secret maritime armada built to move billions in illegal goods without detection. The cartel's reach extended beyond traditional smuggling routes, using retrofitted fishing boats, speedboats, and semi-submersible narco-subs. They created a fleet capable of transporting thousands of tons of cocaine and weapons at once. Each vessel was modified with hidden compartments, false hulls, and custom engines designed to outpace law enforcement boats. The operation was protected by an intricate web of bribery, espionage, and corruption, with cartel operatives embedded in coastal radar stations and port authorities across multiple Caribbean nations. To dismantle something of this magnitude, traditional law enforcement wasn't enough. It required military precision, cyber intelligence, and deep-sea coordination, and that's where the U.S. Navy came in. The Navy deployed a task force made up of destroyers, patrol ships, and reconnaissance aircraft to the Caribbean under the guise of a joint maritime security exercise. In reality, it was a cover for one of the largest interdiction operations ever conducted against organized crime. The FBI, meanwhile, had already infiltrated several layers of the cartel's logistics network. Undercover agents tracked money laundering operations in Miami, offshore accounts in Panama, and coded messages exchanged through encrypted satellite devices. By cross-referencing financial trails with naval radar data, analysts pinpointed the exact routes of the cartel ships. The Caribbean, once calm and picturesque, was now a silent battleground, the stage for a clash between the law and a criminal empire with naval ambitions. When the strike began, it happened in complete silence. U.S. Navy ships approached the first convoy under the cover of darkness, guided by aerial drones equipped with infrared scanners. Within minutes, black-clad special forces teams were dispatched via helicopters and small boats, targeting vessels that had been tracked for weeks. The first targets were a fleet of disguised trawlers that appeared harmless on radar but were loaded with nearly 10 tons of cocaine each. As the commandos boarded, they were met with armed resistance from the cartel's security crews. The confrontation was brief but fierce. Gunfire echoed over the waves, and tracer rounds lit up the night as the Navy's snipers disabled the cartel boats' engines with surgical precision. The cartel fleet's illusion of invincibility shattered instantly. Inside one of the seized ships, agents discovered something they didn't expect: encrypted computers, satellite phones, and schematics for naval routes stretching across 3 continents. It became clear that this was no small-time operation. The cartel had invested in naval intelligence, possibly with foreign assistance. The fleet's command structure resembled a military hierarchy, complete with ranks, patrol schedules, and coded designations. Each ship reported to a central hub, an offshore mothership, that acted as both a command center and a mobile refinery for cocaine processing. Capturing that mothership became the top priority. The intelligence trail led to a massive vessel disguised as a cargo ship anchored near the Windward Passage. It carried no national flag, no registered crew list, and no electronic signal. Satellite images showed it had been stationary for weeks, guarded by armed escort boats. The U.S. Navy, now in full operational mode, moved in. Destroyers positioned themselves strategically to cut off any escape routes while FBI tactical teams prepared for boarding. The final assault was executed with breathtaking coordination. Navy helicopters circled overhead, deploying sonic devices to disorient defenders, while underwater drones disabled the ship's propellers. Within minutes, commandos stormed the deck, engaging in close quarters combat with heavily armed cartel enforcers. When the ship was finally secured, agents discovered one of the most elaborate smuggling infrastructures ever built at sea, multiple decks filled with hidden compartments, tunnels, and a full-scale command room lined with advanced communication systems. The interior of the vessel revealed just how deep the cartel's ambitions went. Inside were encrypted hard drives containing data on offshore accounts, shipment schedules, and payment records totaling nearly $30 billion in illegal transactions. The ship also had luxury quarters designed for high-ranking cartel figures, suggesting that top commanders had been living aboard while overseeing global operations. In one compartment, agents found containers of weapons, including anti-aircraft launchers, suggesting the fleet was prepared for armed confrontation with any pursuing authorities. This wasn't just about drugs, it was about power, a private maritime empire built to rival state control of international waters. Performance-wise, the operation showcased the unparalleled coordination between the FBI intelligence networks and the Navy's operational might. The speed, precision, and timing of the strike demonstrated how effectively federal and military agencies could merge capabilities when confronting unconventional threats. By combining real-time intelligence with maritime dominance, they not only disrupted a major drug operation but also dismantled a system that was corrupting entire economies. Analysts called it a blueprint for hybrid operations, the future model for tackling transnational criminal organizations that operate like paramilitary forces. Safety was paramount throughout the mission. Despite the heavy resistance and high risks, the Navy ensured minimal casualties and avoided environmental damage in the sensitive Caribbean ecosystem. Specialized containment teams secured hazardous materials, and humanitarian units provided aid to captured crew members who were victims of trafficking themselves. The operation also prevented potentially catastrophic incidents such as the detonation of onboard explosives that the cartel had installed as a last resort. It was a delicate balance of aggression and restraint, and it proved that modern warfare against organized crime requires both. What set this mission apart was its unique scope and execution. It wasn't just about law enforcement, it was about reclaiming the seas from criminal control. The U.S. Navy had never before conducted an operation of this scale against a non-state actor with such precision. The FBI Cyber Division, meanwhile, decrypted thousands of encrypted communications within hours of seizure, exposing connections to cartels in Colombia, financiers in Europe, and even corrupt officials in Caribbean governments. The evidence gathered not only dismantled one of the most powerful cartels in the hemisphere, but also triggered a wave of arrests across multiple countries. The Caribbean, once exploited as a transit zone, was suddenly under watchful eyes, its ports, harbors, and coastlines now integrated into a vast surveillance network built to prevent a resurgence. Financially, the strike was devastating to the cartel. The U.S. Treasury froze billions in assets, seized properties, and dismantled shell companies that had been laundering drug money through tourism and shipping industries. The captured fleet, estimated at over $30 billion in value including vessels and contraband, represented the single largest maritime asset seizure in U.S. history. The message was clear: no matter how powerful, no cartel could operate beyond the reach of American law enforcement and naval power. This success also led to renewed partnerships with Caribbean nations, strengthening joint patrols and training local forces to combat maritime crime with advanced technology and coordination. In terms of price and impact, the operation cost millions in logistics, intelligence gathering, and naval deployment. but the long-term payoff was immeasurable. By cutting off one of the primary arteries of the international drug trade, the mission disrupted billions in illicit revenue and weakened the financial foundations of organized crime networks across the Americas. It also restored U.S. influence in a region increasingly targeted by transnational criminals and foreign interests. The operation served as both a warning and a demonstration, a clear example of how modern hybrid warfare could be waged not only against hostile states, but against criminal empires masquerading as legitimate enterprises. In conclusion, the joint strike by the U.S. Navy and the FBI in the Caribbean wasn't just another headline, it was a turning point in the global fight against organized crime. It showed the world that when intelligence, technology, and determination converge, even the most sophisticated criminal network can be dismantled. The Caribbean, once seen as a playground for smugglers and shadow fleets, has now become a symbol of renewed maritime security and international cooperation. And for the men and women who risked their lives in the operation, it stands as a reminder that the battle for the seas is far from over. But victory, no matter how complex, is always within reach when justice sails under the flag of unity and precision.